We're alive.
All right, welcome to the Grand Old Cast. This is Corey and Chad with the Grand Old Cast, and we are sitting here with Marty Babbitt, who doesn't look like a Martin or a Marty. He just looks like a Babbitt. But he was voted least likely to join the military by a group of peers, and yet here he is in the army. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, Babbitt. Where you born? Where you from? Just give us the general zeitgeist of who you are.
Well, it's great to be here. I agree. I don't really look like a Marty. It's weird for you guys to call me Marty. It's just whenever you said it, it was
It
like,
felt wrong.
yeah, like a flashbang. You know what I mean?
Felt dirty.
Uh, yeah. My family is a military family. Corey and I were talking about that a little bit beforehand, uh, which I didn't even think about until I sat down right now. Apparently, I was like thinking about it. Like my granddad was in the military, my uncle was in the military, my brother was in the military, my dad was in the military. I guess we're like a career military family, but none of us like stayed in for the entire like 20 years. My dad was in with Desert Storm around that time. That's when he got out. My brother was War and Terror. I think he got out. I want to say 2018, 2019, somewhere like that. And then he moved to New York. Uh, he was stationed in Germany. Anyways, that's not about me. I'm really great at talking about things that aren't me.
Well, so what's the age gap between you and your brother? Like,
3 years, 3 years.
are you guys close?
We weren't close growing up, but well, see, my dad like left when I was like 11, right? And that kind of bridged a gap between us because he was like the favorite child, and
Hmm.
so like by the time like my dad left, it was just really weird and like awkward. Uh, but then once he got into the military and he got out, it was just sort of like things came together where like we both sort of agreed that like we were kind of on like a similar path. He does music and like I make film, so it's like on the civilian side of things, we're both like very similar in that way. You
Okay.
know, both like two creative individuals in that endeavor. Yeah, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, used to not like really like the guy, but as we've gotten older, I think at a certain point in time, you just sort of stop to like, you stop thinking of like people and like this guy like screwed me over when I was like 14. You just sort of like get
Yeah.
past those petty differences.
Yeah. Actually, believe it or not, me and Chad had a kind of a similar thing with our older brother. Like, it was, obviously we've been really close because we're twins. We grew up together, basically had all the same friend groups and whatnot. But yeah, you have the petty kind of squabbles that you have with your older sibling. And you live in two different ecosystems. It's
Yeah,
like like even if you're only like 4 years age gap, it's like in high school that's everything. It's like
yeah,
I'll never
yeah.
associate
He's
with
a
these
senior and
young
you're a freshman.
kids.
And you're like,
Yeah,
yeah,
so you just kind of, it's just weird how completely different experiences you can have with in the same household with like a 4 year age gap. It's
yeah.
pretty unprecedented.
It's interesting because like whenever I got to like the age my brother was, whenever he was doing the things I was like I would never act like that. I was doing the same stuff.
Hmm.
You judge people a lot harsher when it's not you. And
Yeah,
like I think as I've gotten older, I've like I put in that past myself. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Uh,
It's like I mean, what I was saying it yet the other day. It's like we aren't what we say, we are what we do.
yeah.
So it's just funny how that kind of plays out. It's like George Lucas says, it rhymes. It's like poetry. so, so that being said, so if you don't mind, if you, we don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but why did your dad leave? Like, what happened there?
Well, so my dad has bipolar disorder. I
Okay.
think like really bad manic highs, manic lows, and then I guess he just couldn't like handle being a father. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Like
gotcha.
I don't know. I was. It's one of those things where like I was 11 when it happened, so it's like
Hmm.
I don't really know. Like what do you know when you're 11?
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
so like I don't know. And my mom is like one of the kindest people on the planet,
Hmm.
so like she would always just be like, well, you know, I guess he just had a different place in life, and it's like sure. So like that's the only perspective that I've ever had. It's just like he was in a different world than I was, and that's whatever you're gonna do. I
Yeah.
I don't hold it against him too much, because like at a certain point in time, if your brain doesn't work properly, not to like disparage like
Yeah.
bipolar people, but like there was something wrong with him, and maybe he shouldn't have been a father in the first place. But what are you gonna do?
Well, that's great that you have that outlook on life, and you had your mom was so positive
Yeah,
about that kind of stuff. The fact that you've bounced back, you rekindled with your brother is
yeah,
that's a beautiful thing. Because I mean, Some kids don't bounce back from that kind of stuff. They let it hang over their heads forever and just
No, yeah. I grew up. I didn't grow up in Sand Springs, but like I don't know if you guys know about where Sand Springs is.
yeah,
It's
know
also
exactly where it is.
very like impoverished area.
Mhm.
All working class people. And like as I was going through there, I like realized that like most of the people there were very similar to me. They didn't have a dad. They didn't have a mom. They were just sort of like people trying to do the best they get. And like what I realized is that like at a certain point in time, they were all in like the same cycle of like just doing the same shit, or sorry,
Yeah, you're good. Keep going.
doing the same stuff of just like being like the world was out to get them. And I realized at a certain point in time that like the world isn't out to get you. The world doesn't care.
Yeah.
So like you can either like give it up and just be like, this is terrible. I'm gonna keep going on this path that I'm going on, or you can just sort of get over it and like live your life.
Yeah, and
You know what I mean?
yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it's the fact that you were able to come to that conclusion so young because a lot of kids don't. A lot of
Mm,
kids really don't bounce back. They live in that victim culture, that victim mentality. Oh, woe is me, And then, like I said, again, the vast majority of people you meet in the world are not out to get you. The vast majority of things that happen to you in the world aren't because of some cosmic coincidence that's trying to destroy your life. It's the world is indifferent to you, and most people are going to be indifferent to you throughout your entire career. And I mean,
yeah,
it's that's why I think military is so important for a lot of people. It's like you go to basic training, you're like, I don't know any of these kids. I
yeah.
barely care about any of them, but we have to come together for the common good for whatever reason. So,
I think I was in like also a unique environment because I went to a private school on scholarship, right?
okay,
Um,
what private school?
Bishop Kelly.
Okay,
Yeah, and so like I grew up around a bunch of like really rich kids, right? But I'd spend my weekends hanging out with all these poor people, right? And I realized that like no matter what, they both like were kind of doing the same stuff and having the same problems.
hmm
So I just sort of realized that like it's an excuse.
hmm
People were just pretending that like the reason why they were doing all these things, right, was just because their like dad left them or like because they were broke. And it's like it's not that case. The rich kids just had the money to get out of that situation, and
hmm
like so like at a certain point in time you just sort of realize that like maybe it's not your fault and maybe you don't have to blame everything on other
yeah.
people.
Stop taking the copium.
Mm, yeah.
Okay, so getting into, like I said, I love
Mm.
your positive outlook on life, but what made you join the army? Because you do not,
I-
knowing you, like being in the army with you, I'm like, Babbitt, you are like the outlier in our entire platoon in OCS. So it's like you're the last person I would expect to join. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad you're here. Your
Mm.
perspective and your energy is good to have in our platoon. It's always That's the one thing I like about the army is like you get these fresh perspectives from people you would never expect to meet or have. You know, I don't want to say relationships and because that sounds
Yeah,
weird, but like have these
bonds
bonds
maybe.
with people in the army, and like you just like yours is just it's always been a very unique vibe with the group. So God vibe,
Yeah.
what am I fucking 20? But yeah,
All
so
right, calm down, Moni.
so what prompted you to join the military?
uh
What was the trigger?
um I was working at Walmart in 2021, and I don't know if you've ever worked a retail job overnight. It's terrible.
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
imagine.
like you end up like losing sleep. You're just tired all the time. And like when you're in that cycle of just waking up, this is your life. Going to sleep, this is your life. You just sort of are just like angry at the world all the time, right? And like I just need an out, like any kind of out. If it had been like the Air Force or the Navy or any other branch that had reached out to me first, I probably would be in their branch. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, I like the Army a lot, and like I'm very happy that this is the branch that I chose. But if I'm being honest here, it could have easily, and I think I probably would have done better in the Air Force. I'm not gonna lie.
That's what everyone says. Even the people that I met in the army that said, if you could go back to the Air Force, would you? And they go, oh
Yeah,
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 in a
like
heartbeat.
in a heartbeat, yeah. Because like I don't know, they get hazard pay for living with us. Like I don't want to talk trash on the other branches too badly, but like I don't know. You're right. I'm not a military person, right? Some backstory, I guess. I grew up Catholic. My godmother was the person that she didn't raise me, but like I spent most of my time with her. And she was like a hippie, like Woodstock, like in the '60s or '70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, Woodstock in the '70s, burning bras, stuff like that. Like I am a registered Democrat at this point. Actually, I think I'm an independent. I
Good
don't
for
know.
you.
Know what I am. I should probably know. There's an
Spoken
election.
like a true college kid.
Uh, I should probably know that there is an election coming up. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, if you're well,
Not to get too
are,
political.
are the primaries done already? I mean, I guess you can only vote in your.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, like, yeah, it's not that important. The person that I voted for, not to get too political, wasn't even on the ballot. I had to write him in. That's the kind of state that I live in. Uh, uh, you know, uh, so like, it was a very like, I don't know. For me, the military has never been like a Republican thing or a Democrat thing because I've been around Democrats in the military like my entire life.
That's a
Like,
very patriotic stance. It's an
yeah,
American
it
thing.
is. I think. I not to like get all too like high and mighty because I'm not the most patriotic man in the world, but I do believe it's your civic duty and you're like it's a privilege to serve your country,
Mhm.
especially a country as great as ours. Again, I think that there are a lot of problems with our country and I don't want to get too political, right? But like I truly believe that like you're making it a better place by being in here. So I guess it had always been like there was never like a point in my time where I was like the military is a bad thing. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because like even like growing up, I was like the most like radical, like most left wing I'd ever been was like the military is a necessary evil. You know what I mean? Like there was never a point in time in my like history or like growing up and like my perspective that I was like, there's no point to this because like I don't know. My family's from Poland. We were in like World War II happened. Like we need the military.
We'll take that as a mission. We're getting him deported tomorrow.
But yeah, that was sorry, that last one got me. But yeah, that's sort of why I joined. It was just sort of like I needed an out. The National Guard helped me get into college.
Mhm.
I don't know. Whenever somebody asks me a question like that, my brain immediately goes into recruiter mode because
Mhm.
I worked with recruiters for so long in the Gold program, and like
Mhm.
before that, I actually had an internship with a recruiter, Sergeant. I think he's a staff sergeant now, but I could be wrong. I haven't talked to Sergeant Butler in a while. Nice guy, really nice guy, really great. I don't think he's in recruiting anymore. I think he's in aviation now. Really great guy. I don't mean to like praise him too much, but like uh, I had an intern with him before I joined the military, and I think that that was sort of my way in. Like
Okay.
it got me. It was like a communications credit or something. I got like 3 hours just by basically just like being around his office and helping like recruits get to RSP and stuff.
Okay. So that's how. So you were. It was a college thing. So you were
Yeah,
in college and you were working with this recruiter. What was his name?
Staff Sergeant Butler, I
Staff
believe.
Sergeant Butler. So you're
Yeah,
working with Staff Sergeant Butler, and that was kind of your gateway
yeah,
into being recruited into the
yes.
military. So after you pulled the trigger, after you kind of made that decision, when did you go to basic, and how old were you when you went, and how was it for you?
I was 20 years old. I went in the summer of 2021. Oh yeah, in 9 days I will have been in the military for 3 years. So cool.
Congrats.
Yeah, weird to weird to think about, but yeah, I realized that as we were driving up here. Anyways, uh, summer of 2021, peak pandemic.
Yeah, peak
Uh,
COVID era.
yeah, so that was it. It was weird because like we it was not just peak COVID time. It was also when the ACFT was getting implemented. So we weren't required to do any of like the physical gates in order to actually graduate. There were people that failed like the forge that still graduated with me. Like it was clearly a point in time where they were just like shove bodies through, get buddies through that hole. I don't know. To be fair, I think that that's been how it is ever since. Honestly, ever since Bush. Like just like we are at constant war. Put bodies in the hole.
Yeah, believe it or not, we were talking to Ivy the other day or earlier today, and he basically said the same thing. He goes, there were kids that didn't do anything and still were able to make it through. And it was the same with me and Chad too. So we both went, and there were kids that didn't do the ruck, the 10 mile ruck in the forge, didn't do the ruck back to the Hilton Field, and they were still on the graduation field with us the next couple of days. And I
Yeah.
was like, what is happening
I
here?
remember being frustrating, because it
Hmm.
was like I worked so hard. Like, not that it matters. I was an out of shape fat body. I still am kind of an out of shape fat body. You don't look at because I wear all these jackets in order to like hide the, but uh, when I remember like working so hard to like be able to pass, and then like seeing all those, it was like a little demoralizing,
Little slap in the face.
But like also at the same time, I tried to look at it from the drill sergeant's perspective of just like it's another number,
Hmm.
and it's like that's sort of how like the military unfortunately is a bureaucracy. It's not a meritocracy, no matter how much we want it to be, and no matter how much we like you you go there, you pass the test, and then you
Hmm.
graduate, and that's how it is the entire time.
Yeah,
Uh,
it is once you get into like the more special operator
yeah,
areas. So, the meritocracy applies when it comes to selection and special forces and these, like what Ivy was doing with his 15 Tango stuff. Like, they don't want fools working in those areas. But again, there are still those. Like, I think one of my drill sergeants and your drill sergeant Ramirez says, if you're standing next to someone that you feel embarrassed to be graduating with, we didn't do a good job, but there's not a lot that they could do as drill sergeants about
yeah.
it because they're just NCOs. And like I said, we're at the lowest recruitment numbers ever, essentially in the military, like pre World War II numbers is what it is, and they just want people at this point, and
I,
so
I think that that's a culture issue we have nowadays. Like don't get me wrong. I think that like everybody's doing their best. I just think the perspective is maybe not wrong, just different than what I would do.
yeah.
Um, and when you get to your unit, I know neither of you have been to a unit, so you guys don't like, and I haven't been to a unit as long as like I've been like I know that like it like I like talk like I've been there like a whole time, but it's like, like I think I was at 3 or 4 drills.
Yeah, if
Uh,
you listen to Babbitt talk, you would think he's a lifer.
yeah.
Were you in at like 14, man? Like, what? Do you know how the whole system works?
uh, yeah, I don't know. I like to joke that I'm confidently wrong a lot. So,
Shit, that actually will get you through the army quite a
yeah.
bit.
Um, I think it's a meritocracy to an extent. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like the fact of the matter, especially for the guard, is that there are only so many slots for the ranks that you can get, and there are only so many things that you can do, right? So like in order to beat those people out, there is a hierarchy of things you need to do. But if you're comfortable with your rank, you can kind of just coast along. Yeah,
Mhm.
like that's the issue that the Oklahoma Guard has right now.
Mhm.
Is that we don't have people that are like hungry to like promote, hungry to do better. Like, and I know that like that seems like an outlier to y'all because we have great cadre as instructors, right? But the
Yes,
reason they're instructors is because
they're the best.
they're the outlier. They're not the rule, and that's why I think they push so hard at us, right? Is because I think that especially somebody like Sergeant Sidden Sergeant First Class Sim, sorry. Uh, yeah, that's another thing that's really hard for me, especially in OCS, and it's something that I really need to break. You don't refer to people by their ranks usually when you refer to them offhandedly,
Hmm.
like, and so like it's really weird for me to say like Sergeant Sidden or Sergeant First Class Walker or like
Hmm.
Sergeant First Class Gonzalez, stuff like that, right? Because like back in my home unit, it was just like
Hey, Sergeant.
yeah, it was like, "Hey, Sergeant," or like if I was casual enough with them, it would be like, "Hey, what's up, Ramirez?"
Hmm.
And like my first line would just be like, it would just be like that.
Yep.
Uh, but like I guess that's like something that I really need to like get past, especially in OCS.
That's why I'm excited to get out of the training environment because like Chad and I have never been out of the
Mm,
training environment, so we've only ever called people drill sergeant, sir, or sergeant, or
yeah,
whatnot. So
you're gonna
it'll
be
be
in for a
interesting to
culture
see.
shock. You're gonna be in for a pretty big culture shock. Um,
So, yeah, go ahead, take a drink. And I was going to
yeah.
ask you a question. So, obviously, you'd gone to basic in 2021,
Mm.
peak pandemic era time. My question to you is, do you have any memorable stories about basic training? Like, what's the funniest story, or what's the most memorable? It doesn't have to be a good one. It could just be what was a memorable, or like again, a funny one would be great too. Like, what was some good stuff that happened to you at basic training, or just some memorable things that happened?
I just remember being tired of 18-year-olds. There was like a certain
Says the 20-year-old.
listen. You 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds are a lot different. Like I'd been working since I was 16. So like I had been like I didn't even think about like high school when I was in high school, you know what I mean? It was just sort of like a thing I had to go to.
Yeah. So I will say this about Babbitt, folks. Like, Babbitt is the youngest person in our group, but he doesn't feel like the youngest person in our group, which is really odd. But
Yeah,
like I said, it's the truth.
it's
So
I don't know. I I just remember like going in there and like there was a lot of testosterone and a lot of anger and like a lot of people who clearly like had like grown up in environments that they were just like tired and angry at the world and like you know what I mean?
I
Like
know exactly what you
yeah,
mean, man. I
because
mean,
like you guys were what like how old were you when you guys went through basic?
I was 33. Chad was 32.
Yeah.
I turned 33 at basic training. So yeah, that was.
Yeah. Uh, I remember hanging out with majority people that were older than me. Um, I remember the day before we left, this guy comes in and he like I'm doing my laundry right because we're about to go to AI. I'm about to go off to another part of South Carolina for AIT.
Stucking it out in Fort Jackson for AIT.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm a 42 Alpha. I don't know if I mentioned that, which I don't know if that's like something I should acknowledge, but yeah. Uh, I I went from I think it was 269 to 369, Bravo Company 369. Um,
Why don't you tell us what a 42 alpha is for those
okay,
laymen's? Like, what exactly is a 42 alpha? What does that mean to the layman?
a 42 Alpha is somebody that works in S1, which is going to be your personnel section, right? S1 is going to be staff in the military, right? So a 42 Alpha, they are basically your subject matter expert on paperwork. Uh,
Hold on, you mean tell me you're a paper filer?
More or
You
less.
get out of this office right now. You get out of there. We don't even want to talk to you now.
Hey, I'm the reason you guys get paid. Uh,
That is true. Like for all the hate and all like there's rivalries between all branches, but at the end of the day, we're all working to do the same mission.
Yeah.
Like I mean, our objectives might be different, but the mission's the same. So, I guarantee you, the infantry guys, they're not going to be happy doing their job if they find out they go home and their paychecks aren't being cut at home. So,
I mean, if you guys want to see why S1 is a problem, no shade to the people at the RTI, but clearly it's not being run by S1. Like it's not being run by 42 Alphas, which is why we don't get paid like on time most of the time. Like I don't mean to disrespect like Sergeant or like I'm not gonna name names.
yeah, not
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Let's
Sorry
keep it
about that.
clean.
Sorry about that. I'm not gonna like talk badly on the S1 shop there as much as I could, but like it's very clear to me as somebody that has worked there that those people were either transfers from other units or were transfers from other MOSs or were if they were in the of 42 alphas they had been 42 alphas for a very long time and they don't like have a fresh work and to be fair S1 is hard. S1 is a lot harder than people like make it out to be. There's the common joke that like the S shop opens at 9 o'clock and it closes at 9:30, right?
Mhm.
Uh, and like that's kind of true. I'm not gonna lie to you. We don't do as much work as we should, but like a good S shop should be open till 1700. It should be open like past. Honestly, most S shops that I've worked in have been open past the point where they need to be. You know,
Okay.
like I think, and like to like explain like why the guard is so like deficient on that. The S1 NCOIC at my old units, which I'm not gonna name drop because they are good people, and I don't want it like I don't want them to be mad at me. Uh, the S1 NCOIC there was an infantry sergeant. He was not a 42 Alpha. The guy that was our 42 Alpha, our S1 shop, did have two NCOs that were actual 42 Alphas, but the guy in charge of us was a guy who transferred over to like get these certifications, and that's the only reason why he was there because he was just again it was like like this guy had like the face that they wanted for the he was like friends with people so he got
Yeah.
the promotion over the people that deserve it.
Face of the
Yeah,
organization.
and again
Type of guy.
I don't want to talk badly on the because it's just the reality of the situation, you know what I mean?
Yeah, at PRs it means a lot in whatever branch you're
Yeah.
in. So any really good basic training stories or
Yeah, this okay, so when I was the day before I was leaving for AIT, this guy I was doing my laundry, and this guy comes up to my like clothes like in the washer, and he like tries to open my thing, and I was like, "Hey man, my stuff's still washing. So watching, and he gets in my face, like closer to me than where the mic is. This like 18-year-old who is like just starts screaming about me about how I need to do something, right? And like what makes it funny is the guy was 5'4". The guy was
Little man
yeah,
syndrome.
and he was just like screaming like a literal chihuahua, and I was like, man, you're really lucky that like I'm leaving tomorrow because like I would have just like beaten his ass if I could because like after 2 months of dealing with your nonsense, you're going to do this to me. You're just gonna like try and cause a fight the day before I never have to see you again. I that
That's kind of the way it goes. Like
yeah.
Chad, that's your bay fell apart the last couple of days you were there. So
It
that's
was
kind of part for the course. Like,
Throwing chairs, getting arrested, you know.
yeah, that's why I told my buddy. He was an Air Force guy,
Mhm.
and he was there, and I was like, "Why are you here?" And he was like, "I want to pilot Apaches." I was like, "You loser!" So he's an 09 Sierra, like I was, and I just looked at him and I said, "You watch, the last 3 days here, we're gonna see crap tons of fights breaking out and all kinds of stuff." And then like so, literally, that's what was happening. People were screaming and yelling at each other. And then he just looked at me and goes, and it, like as these fights are breaking out in the bay, he just points over at me and goes, "You were right, you were right." And I was like, "Yeah, my brother told me this is what was going to happen." I was like,
Yeah.
"It makes sense because it all comes to a head right there at the end of basic training because you've been having to put up with each other for so long, and all of a sudden you just can you're like, I'm not going to see this person again, so I'm just going to treat him as crappily as I want."
Yeah, and it's like I don't get it. I was always a very like civil, like polite person, which is probably why people were like, "Man, screw that guy. That guy is," you know what I mean?
You just look like you have a very pick onable
I,
face.
d- I've been told that a lot. I've been told that like, especially with the way I talk, it's very monotone. People seem to think that I'm always being a dick all the
you,
time.
you do have kind of the voice and face that comes off like you just have a
Yeah,
condescending. I don't know what it is about your face. Like, if you don't change it, I'm going to change it for you.
I used to joke that like I was like a real world Chandler Bing. You know what I mean?
so, so you move on to AIT. You're going to do your 42 Alpha stuff.
Mm.
How was AIT for you? Was it? Is it? How different is so?
9 day, 9 day.
9 day difference. So it was way better than basic training.
Oh
Was?
yeah. Okay, so AIT for a 42 alpha is weird because, excuse me,
You go.
the command sergeant major who's in charge of our battalion, right?
Mhm.
He was an infantry guy. We had a group PMCSing from Fort Bragg, I believe Fort Bragg, whichever is the airborne school, right? I can't Bragg. Thank you.
PMCSing. What does
Yeah,
that mean?
Bragg.
PMCSing is where you're doing a. Don't make me say acronyms. Okay, so it's essentially where a unit is moved over to another place for
That's
a.
short.
Yeah, I think the P stands for permanent, but it's not permanent. So that's uh, it basically means I think it's PCSing, not PMCSing. PMCSing is performance maintenance checks, and I'm sorry, I used the wrong acronym. It's PCSing is permanent change of status. I believe that could be wrong.
What Babbitt's doing right now is not uncommon. Like we know acronyms in the military, but we don't know what they stand for. We just know what they are.
To be fair, these are active duty acronyms that we would never need to use anyways.
Yeah.
PMCSing is something that you'll use. You use it every time. Like it's one of the things that I've noticed on our draws that is an issue is that, and this is just like something that I could have brought up at some point in time, but it's not really worth talking about because in a trained environment, we probably should do it anyways. Whenever I used to do draws back in the day for the gold program, I was in the gold program, and it was like it was weird because our only cadre was a sergeant first class and a captain that were just like you could do whatever as long as you could find me the regulation and rules, right? So like I would like for instance if we were doing movements, I would be like, "Can I take my POV?" And they'd be like, "If you could fill out a draw correctly." And so one of the things like for the vehicle, right, or like for our equipment, PMCSing basically means that you're checking it over, right? So instead of doing performance checks on this vehicle, we should be writing doing or PMCSing this truck, stuff like that. It's like small, like minute details that both are technically correct, but one is like army correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And again, this is maybe another confidently wrong situation where I was told something, you know what I mean?
So back to AIT.
Yeah, sorry, I
So
didn't
how? No, I know. That's okay. Going on tangents is good, but so AIT. So it's night and day different from basic training. what's the major differences? I mean, you're just treated better, or I
Well,
mean, they still smoke you there. Like, what's the kind
okay.
of the?
So AIT, at least for 42 Alpha, is more intense than basic training was because of the mentality that 42 Alphas are slackers, right? And so the command sergeant major that was in charge of our battalion was like, "Listen, we have airborne units here. You guys need to stay to the standard of the airborne units." So, like, it was a smoke show a lot of the time, but also at the end of the day, I had my laptop. I hadn't. We were given off hours where we could just do whatever we wanted. The weekends were entirely free. Like, uh, well, okay, not entirely free because of COVID times. There were like restrictions, right? But
Mhm.
like, we couldn't go off post. We couldn't we couldn't like. We had like two walk routes. We couldn't take cars, right? Like back in the day, you could have just like gotten a taxi and driven over to like the PX or to
Mhm.
clothing and sales, right? But like that was restricted because of COVID, right? They couldn't like you couldn't be in somebody else's taxi. I guess it was like a post rule, you know.
Okay.
And that's again not army wide. That's a post rule. So that like stuff like that. But like for the most part, I would go in. I would wake up. We would do PT. It wasn't self guided like we have it. It was like an actual like there were drill sergeants teaching it. And it was like pretty intense. Like I think our shortest runs were always like 4 or 5 miles at like a kind of slow pace. But like still like it was enough to where you were just like annoyed by it because this you woke up at like 5 in the morning and like the drill sergeants were always like really good at like running cadences there. So like half of the cadences were about how much it sucked to do PT. So you were just like screaming out about how angry you were at the world, you know.
Mhm.
Another thing that I noticed that was different, the DFAC was just like way better. Like 369's DFAC, I think, is like on record as being like the most award-winning DFAC in the entirety of South Carolina, like in Fort Jackson. So
Wow.
like it's like genuinely really good.
Sign me up. I only
Yeah,
got that basic training defect chow.
dude, you want to know something crazy? I get there, they're serving steak and lobster.
My
Day
God.
one,
Day
they're
one.
serving steak and lobster. Yeah. The drill sergeant looks at us and is like, "Yes, you can use the ice cream machine. Please don't eat ice cream for breakfast. Go do whatever." And we were like, "Okay." And so I ate ice cream for breakfast for like 2 weeks.
And I will say this: I don't know about you, but when I was there for Thanksgiving for basic training, so we actually had the drill sergeant serve us for Thanksgiving, and they had steak, lobster.
We got it for our victory
You
meal
got it for
after the
victory meal.
forge.
Okay,
So we got crab legs, steak, all kinds of good stuff.
Did you guys were at basic during Thanksgiving? This is a genuine question. Did they not give you leave?
no, there was no leave. We just had Thanksgiving. They gave us a big Thanksgiving dinner.
That's really strange to me because I've always been told, at least I've always been told that like they would take leave for like maybe it's because it's right next to Christmas and I know Christmas gets a block leave, so yeah.
I would probably say so because everyone did sign up for Christmas leave, but I was going back to Oklahoma after that, so I didn't have to worry about it.
Mm.
So, what's your most memorable story from AIT?
My most memorable story from AIT. Do you want a bad story or a good story?
Hey, whichever one you want to tell. Maybe both if we got time.
All right. Let's talk about me coming back from AIT to Oklahoma, which is the worst experience I've ever had in the military. Okay, so they put us on a bus. They drive us to an airport, I believe 5 miles away from Carolina. I get there. Um, the flight is delayed. I'm like, cool, whatever. There's like a USO in there's a USO in Fort Jack or in the Columbus airport, right? And there's also like a store that sells cigarettes. So I immediately get a pack of cigarettes. I immediately go outside, chain smoke an entire pack of cigarettes while I'm waiting for my flight, right? And I was just like, these cigarettes kind of suck, because like I don't know if you guys have ever smoked cigarettes before, but like if you go on a break for a while, it's just like it's nice for the first cigarette, and then after this like the second cigarette, you're like, ugh, you know. But I have a really bad nicotine addiction. See, so I was just like, whatever, I don't care, I don't care. So I'm sitting there. I finished the whole pack of cigarettes. I go back up to the plane. I sit on the plane. First, they tell me that my carry-on bag is too large. My carry-on bag was a medium ruck, which whatever, which meant that I had to pay to check that bag because they would only cover two check bags, right? That's why I was using my ruck as a carry-on because I bought a huge suitcase which could fit. Uh, Two duffels in it. You had three duffels worth of equipment. I think I'm trying to remember. It's been 2 years.
Yeah.
I put the two duffels in there, and then I put my other duffel as my check bags, and then they were like, you can't take that bag on with you, and I'm like, that's annoying. My laptop and everything's in here. So I give it back to them. They check the bag. I pay whatever the charge fee is. It's like I don't know. It's too much for it. It's not enough for me to complain, but it's too much for me to be happy about this situation. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Absolutely.
So I get back on the plane. I'm sitting there. I like look at my phone. I look at my watch, and I realize that we've been sitting there for like an hour without any movement. And I was like, "Cool, whatever, I guess." Another 45 minutes passed before we hear over the thing, "This flight's delayed." And so I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I go out. They're like, we'll get you on a flight to. By the way, just to be clear here as to what was happening, they were flying us from South Carolina to North Carolina to an airport there, which would then fly us to Tulsa. Not for nothing, we could have driven from South Carolina to North Carolina in the time it took them to delay that flight.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there. They finally are like, all right, we got a flight to North Carolina. So we get there. We get to North Carolina at like 7 or 8 o'clock, right? To be clear here, we left Fort Jackson at I believe noon or 11 o'clock, something like that. So I'd been in the airport for about 8 hours at this point, 8 or 9 hours. Uh, and then we get to the air, or we get to North Carolina. We get there. I asked them I asked them if they could help me out, right? They're like, you got to call someone. Your flight went off like 3 hours ago. You got to call someone. And I was like, okay. And so I called their helpline. The helpline is like, you got to talk to someone there. And I was like, all right. So I go back to the help desk and I was like, hey, so the person that you told me to call, they told me to talk to you. And so I'm sitting, so they're like, all right. So here's what we could do. We could put you in Oklahoma City right now. And I was like, okay, when's that flight go off? And they're like 10 o'clock. And I was like, cool. That's like 3 hours from now. So I guess I'm hanging out in another airport for another 3 hours. I like sit around. I hang out. I think I'm 20 at this point, so I'm not old enough to buy alcohol. I definitely did not like hang out at the bar and just wait for somebody to buy me a drink because I was like, I'm in the military. That definitely didn't happen. To be clear here, that definitely didn't happen. I definitely wasn't like a little too drunk when I got onto the OKC flight home. So I'm sitting there. That flight is like, by the way, at this point, because I'm in Oklahoma, I'm flying to Oklahoma City. I've like my family is all in Tulsa, right? So like they
Mhm.
can't make that drive at 10 o'clock or whatever. Whenever we're or like I think we're supposed to land in OKC at like 11:30, something like that, right?
Mhm.
So I'm calling my buddy Jacob Meller who lives in Norman, right? Because he goes to OU,
Mhm.
and that's like I don't know, like a 30-minute drive
Yeah.
to Will Rogers, you know.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
So is it Will Rogers or
Yeah. That's
yeah?
Will Rogers.
I just want to be
Will
sure.
Rogers.
Yeah. So he's like, okay, sure, I can get you at like midnight. You said the flight's coming in at midnight. Of course, the flight in North Carolina also delays, so I don't get home to Oklahoma City until maybe 2 in the morning. My my buddy picks me up at 2 in the morning, and Will Rogers. I don't know if I've ever told you guys this before. I hate Oklahoma City. I hate everything about it. It's an awful city, garbage city. Maybe that's because I grew up in Tulsa my whole life. Garbage city. So me landing down in my home state, and it's in the one city in all of Oklahoma. I'm like, I can't stand the city. Already blood boiling. My buddy is like, we're going to Norman. We get to Norman. It's loud because I think there was some football game, and like I'm tired and angry at the world, right? And like I'm like in that like but I'm like in that state where like you've you haven't drank in a while, but like you definitely are like still a little tipsy, and you're just like, you know that angry drunk that you get. You know what I'm talking about? Like
Yes.
when like you're like, why is everyone else partying? Partying's over. That's where I was at. And so I'm like walking back. I get to my friend's dorm at like 3:30 in the morning. I pass out literally on a hardwood floor. I wake up at like 8 in the morning to like some RA screaming through the door. I call my mom and I'm like, hey mom, can you come pick me up? I'm in Oklahoma City. And she's like, wait, you got home? What? I was supposed to pick you up in Tulsa tomorrow. I was like, yeah, I know. Can you just pick me up? And so she drives me home, and then I take a nap, and it's a lot better now.
I can see that. So, how long were you stationed at your 42 Alpha company?
Uh, I want to say 3 or 4 months,
3 or
but
4 months before you got picked up into the gold program?
yeah, 3 or 4 months into the gold program. Sorry, I know that was a really long-winded tangent.
No, no,
Anyways,
no.
3 or 4 months into the gold program, it was nice. My unit was cool. Again, not gonna name drop it because I talked bad on them earlier, but great unit. First sergeant was really cool. I get there, the first drill, they're like, we're doing ACFTs. You have one on record. Would you like to do one again? I was like, nope. And they were like, okay.
That's awesome. That's the kind of unit I want to be assigned to. Do you guys want to do it? Nah, I'm good. I've
Yeah,
got it.
yeah, I already have it on record. What are you gonna do? And
Let's not waste time here.
and then like the next day they were like, all right, we're doing an MRE, and I was like, cool. Did you either of you do on ramp?
Mm-mm.
Okay, on ramp is what gets you into the military, right? Or gets you like stationed into your home unit. They give you your patches and stuff, and on ramp is different for a lot of units. Mine was up in Norman. It was a cool time. They do, and on ramp again is done differently depending on the unit, but generally it's an MRE to make sure that you're fine, right? So I do my MRE there. The next month, I go to my unit. They're like, we're doing an MRE," and my unit, and I was like, I just did an MRE at on ramp, and they're like, cool, 42 alphas are running the MRE shop,
Mhm.
so you're running it now, and I was like, okay, fine, whatever, and then I just got thrown to the fire. It was nice. It was nice. I got to do my job really, really, really fast. Learned a lot about it. And then I got picked up by the Gold program, and
Why don't you explain to the so let's assume that the folks listening are laymen. What is the gold program?
it's a good thing I've rehearsed this recruiting thing before. The Guard Officer Leadership Development Program is a program initiated by
Wait, are
the.
you telling me gold is an acronym?
It is an acronym. It's not just because you get a butter bar after.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the Guard Officer Leadership Development Program is a program that was initiated by the recruiting forces across multiple states in the Midwest. The purpose of it is to enrich and strengthen the minds of future officer candidates as they go into the world of OCS and prepare them in order to become leaders for the greatest fighting force in America. Did I say all the things?
That sounded like you said all the things to me.
All
So
right.
it's a pre OCS kind of.
Essentially, I don't know. I joked with my Sergeant First Class Gonzalez, that going to OCS was doing the gold program on baby mode, uh, because like uh, it depends on your gold program, but the RSU gold program, at least for the first few months of OCS, is kind of just what you're doing in the gold program. The first day you're there, and you drill once a week in the gold program. Every
Mhm.
Wednesday you drill, so um, it's sharpen your mind the entire time. The custom and courtesies, all of that is just like sharpen your mind. By the time you get to pre OCS, like you've done this for like 2 years now. I had been doing it for about a year and a half, and so like that's why it was all sharp in my mind. That's why it was ready to go. And I get there and I'm like, oh, this is kind of disappointing, because like I get there and none of the people in pre OCS are doing any of that, and like the
Yeah.
only people that are doing it are gold program tax who
Yeah.
already know me. So that was fun. Uh, I don't know. And then I get there, and Sergeant First Class Clark is like looking at my hair. Oh yeah, I had blonde hair back then.
Oh
Yeah,
my god.
that was a fun time. Do you guys remember that?
No,
I do.
Oh, Corey, were you not there for that
I
drill?
came
He was
in
not there for
March.
that
My
drill,
first drill
yeah.
was March, right after. Like, it was the first weekend after I got back. I was like, I don't even get a break. Like, I come back from basic and I'm in pre OCS like the next weekend.
Uh, it was February, I believe. January, February. I can't. February, yeah, it's definitely February, because I was still drilling with the gold program in January of last year. Was that last year? God, time flies. Uh, it, anyways, I had in regulation. arguably in regulation blonde hair, arguably. At least I was able to argue it to a captain at the gold program who was like, "That's what the regulation says." I would say,
It was bleach
it was
blonde
like
hair.
it was it was frosted tips basically.
He looked like Ken from the Barbie.
Ah, you were Knuff, weren't you?
I was Knuff before Knuff was a thing.
Where it was a thing. My God. So you were the proto Knuff.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling needs to pay me.
That's right.
Yeah. So the backstory to the blonde hair. My I was wanting to do my hair blonde for a while, but I didn't really have a good time to do it right. And my friend Ponce, who is in the gold program, really nice guy. Really like high speed. He was an aviations guy. I think he's in pre OCS right now. He's the guy with spiky hair. He's a cool dude. Cool dude.
Okay.
He was like he came up to me and was like, "Hey man, I know you dyed your hair a lot when you were in high school. How do you do it?" And I was like, "Great question. You want us to find out?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." And so we all dyed our hair blonde into regulation hair colors. Uh, Again, debatably regulation hair colors. And then we all went off to New York for a week. This isn't really related to the story. I spent last 2 Christmas ago in New York with my brother. It was a great time.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and then I kind of forgot about the army for a while. I get to pre OCS. I'm like, all right, I better shave my hair to get it in regs. And so I buzzed the sides, right? So that way it's basically an overcut, right? And I have like blonde that's like about this length, a little bit shorter, right? Uh, and this guy, Sergeant First Class Clark, who Sergeant First Class Clark has known me for a while. He and I were never saw eye to eye on things very often. Uh, he to explain him, he once screamed at me while I was in the front line rest, "Is your head attached to your body because you're that dumb?" So that's the kind of relationship I have with Sergeant First Class Clark. We're cool, you know. We're cool.
Great guy.
Yeah, great guy, nice man. Good banter back and forth, you know.
I'll bet. Sounds like it.
Yeah.
The front leaning rest.
Yeah, and I was cracking jokes, so it all works out. He comes up to me, or well, we're doing another MRE because for whatever reason, every Army space wants to do MREs like every 5 minutes. So we're doing an MRE for like your like going to OCS physical, right? Um, and he is doing height and weight, and as I'm walking by, Sergeant First Class Clark looks at me and he goes, "We're gonna have a talk after this," and I was like. And like I probably said the wrong thing when I said about what.
Sergeant, officer candidate Babbitt. About what?
So I was just like walking along, because like I was just messing around. I thought it was funny. I'm like the issue is I know he thought it was funny too because like I know that look in his face when he's trying not to laugh, right? So First Lieutenant Stozier, another great guy who I've known for like 2 years at this point, is like talking.
Captain Stozier now, right?
Yeah, Captain Stozier, but at the time, First Lieutenant Stozier, great guy, nice guy. He is like, "You've been talked to about your hair, right?" And I was like, "Yes, sir. It's in regulations." And he was like, "Can you show me the regulations?" And I was like, "Sure. Let me pull out my phone." And because pre-OCS, you have your phone on you. Are you supposed to have your phone on you in pre-OCS? I have no idea.
You're allowed to have it. You're not allowed to have it, on to where it's going to make noise.
Yeah.
That's the rule.
Anyways, First Lieutenant Stozier was like, "All right, get the phone out, get 617-1." And the specific regulation for AR 617-1 is, I don't want to say the wrong regulation, but I believe it's 3-2 subparagraph B. I memorized this in case I needed to ever get this out. Hair can be dyed so long as it fades naturally and isn't fattish. And as I say the word fattish, Sergeant First Class Clark comes up, takes my phone from me, zooms in, and is like, "Fattish. This is fattish." And I was like,
Define fat.
I was like, "Sergeant Officer Candidate Babbitt, that's your prerogative on that." And I was like, and like I was convincing First Lieutenant Stozier, I believe, right? Because I even was like, "Listen, this captain, whose name I'm not going to drop because I don't know if he's in the military right now anymore. he was a bad dude. He not that important to anything. Just I'm not going to say the name of that captain for reasons.
It was because of the hair stuff.
Yeah,
That's why they kicked him out.
he was he went to a unit and his hair was just purple.
Oh my
No,
gosh.
no, that's not it. But he was saying too many things weren't fads. Uh, so I was like, yeah, this captain said it was fine, and he was like, okay, I'll text him, and I was like, cool, whatever. And Sergeant was like, he goes on this rant for like 30 to 45, like 45, like 30, 45 seconds, maybe like 3 minutes, just straight of him just screaming, right? Like top of his lungs screaming. And have you ever met Sergeant First Class Clark?
No.
Again, short man, which makes it scarier somehow. You know what I mean? Because like I don't know.
He's got something to prove when
Yeah,
he's
yeah, yeah. I don't know. Again, like the guy, scary dude, right? He's just screaming and screaming, and I don't remember most of what he says because when people scream at you like that, they don't want to learn. They don't want you to learn anything. They just want you to stop doing what you're doing, right? And so I listened to the first sentence where he was like, "This is faddish," right? And then I listened to the last sentence where he was like, "You're what's wrong with the enlisted corps," and I was like, "Man, I should have paid attention a little bit." And then I was like, "That's your perspective, Sergeant."
God. How are you not dead?
And he's like, "You'll fix that by next drill, right?" And I was like, "Sure, Sergeant."
Okay.
And then,
and this was all in the pre-OCS.
yeah,
program.
Prios, yes.
First drill.
First time there. Uh, first time there. The annoying thing is that there was a chief right next to First Lieutenant Sozier who had like bright highlights in her hair, and I was like, "Man, how is that not what?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. She's just a girl.
Yep.
This is sexism." I didn't want to. I wasn't gonna play that card,
Yeah,
but that's how it felt in my
Don't
heart.
throw her into the bus. She's probably sitting there going, "My hair."
No, she's sitting there going, "I'm a chief. They're not gonna say anything to me."
So, gold program to pre-OCS, and then you were basically in the pre-OCS a month before I showed up,
Yeah,
and then you were slated to go to South Dakota.
I did go to South Dakota.
So you went. So again,
I went until I believe 3 days before phase 3.
okay. So Babbitt went he went to South Dakota for accelerated
Mhm.
OCS, state OCS, which means he would have been done in 3 months, right?
2 months.
So it would have
I
been two
believe
months
9
in
weeks
South Dakota.
specifically.
9 weeks in South Dakota is
Yeah.
our traditional state. What we're doing now is we go to 2 weeks, and we went 2 weeks in June to Kansas, and then we came back and after we completed phase 1, and now we do phase 2 over the course of basically a year, and then we go to phase 3 in June again, and then we come back after we complete our 6 lanes, and we're basically ready to be officers if we make it through that process. So, what happened to you in South Dakota? What?
Like, why did I come to traditional?
Yes. Why did you come back to traditional? I mean, did you?
Oh, I was just too good. I was too cool. They needed to humble me.
Oh,
Yeah, I was just too
man,
great.
That's
No, I broke myself. It wasn't even. I passed the 4 mile. I passed the 12 mile rock, and then like on like a routine thing, I just broke myself, and then like I had to go home. Sergeant First Class Walker was like, "Man, that sucks," and then I came up here with OC Bottoms and Moulton.
okay.
Yeah, or sorry, Specialist Bottoms, Civilian Bottoms now, I believe.
Civilian bottoms now. So
Yeah,
So we had 3 come back from Oklahoma from South Dakota. And South Dakota is again, it's where it's
brutal.
the candidate killer. It's where Oklahoma quit sending candidates there for a while because the attrition rate was so bad in South Dakota.
It's brutal. It's like you run everywhere with that pack on, and like it weighs more than what we put in it. Because like they give you textbooks, they give you like a lot of note taking material, they give you so much stuff. Because I think in the back of their mind they're like, yeah, we'll see if it breaks them, right? And like how like Sergeant Sid and checked us for water while we were in the field
Yeah,
every day,
every day.
every day, even when we were like right before going to phase 3, every day. Like it's just stuff like that. They very attention to detail oriented,
Hmm.
very much everything had to be like just perfect. Room inspections, or sorry, locker inspections every day. Uh, there were times regularly where like you had to lock up your duffels, and if your duffels weren't locked, like in the way that they couldn't open it, they would still just rip it open and just dump everything out. That's why I don't have a fleece, and it makes me so mad because I locked up my duffel. This captain comes in and he like is like he locked the duffel. I could see the strings, and he just like he pulled it open as best he could, and he just shoved everything out of my duffel. And I was like, all right. And so I went and grabbed all my stuff, and I was like, my fleece is missing. And somebody was like, we'll find it later. And I'm pretty sure that guy stole my fleece.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
That's surprising too. I mean, our bay was pretty trustworthy in Kansas. Like, if people had their stuff, they left their locker unsecured or something. I mean, most people were pretty helpful
They,
about getting stuff back.
yeah, they would help you find it. Yeah,
Yeah.
we had a pretty chill.
That's,
we had
that's
a
what's
pretty
why I'm
chill
shocked.
crew.
I will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those that do. That's the OCS motto, and that's so the fact that somebody took it. That's a no-no,
Yeah.
honor
There
code
were.
violation.
Um, I don't believe that accelerated. I'm going to be careful with my words here. I don't believe that accelerated prepares you for being an officer, nor does it focus on the things that
Matter.
matter might not be the right word. The things that I believe would be useful to like the honor code, stuff like that. That's still a thing, right? But it's more of like, if we're mad at you, we're going to, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, as opposed to like here, where like it always matters all the time, you know? Like, it's just like, I don't know. What I learned from Accelerated OCS is next to nothing, except for how to pass the tests. And that's why I was able to pass. I mean, I don't know if you guys can tell or not, but in traditional, I still was pretty knowledgeable about most of the things,
Hmm.
just because like they drill it into your head nonstop, and like you don't need that information. You don't,
Yeah.
with all due respect, you don't need to know the history of the military so much as you need to know the why you need to know the history of the military. You know,
Hmm.
you don't. You're never going to be in a situation where you call for fire and like your RTO or whoever and your forward observer isn't going to be like making sure you're correct, right?
Yeah.
You just need to know why you need to know that, you know, and that's what I think traditional is set up to do. Is like it's supposed to give you the why, right? The accelerated is set up to give you the answer.
Yeah, it's set up to just get as many people through as they can
Get as many people through as they can, or break people
as
in the
quickly as
process. Yeah,
possible. Yeah. So so we at traditional we actually get a lot of exposure with our cadre. Like we get a lot of hands-on personal experience with our cadre. So we have some really good we have some fantastic instructors. We've had some pretty fantastic black hats too. Even when the black hats were messing us up, like the sergeants and stuff,
mm,
like it really hasn't been all that bad. It's been they're very knowledgeable. They all know exactly what they're doing. They're experts in their field. So we've really lucked out in state OCS. I'm
yeah,
really glad that I chose to do state OCS instead of accelerate. Would it be nice to already have the butter bar and be commissioned? Absolutely, and be done with this stuff. But
well,
we're learning at a very good pace, I think.
well, from perspective that I have, because I've a lot of my friends that went to accelerate with me, uh, they don't know what they're doing, and I don't mean that to be like disrespectful to them, because like they're my friends. I like talk to them still to this day, right? But like they get to their unit and they're just like shell shocked, right? Like they freeze because like they don't know what to do. They're treated like they don't know what to do, and like they're just sort of like babysat by a sergeant first class most of the time. And again, not trying to talk bad on them at all, because they were very smart people. They're all college educated. They're all like really good at like military stuff, right? But like the ones that just went to accelerated straight off the bat, and then they just like went to their unit, it's a very harsh learning curve, you know? And so like traditional, well, I don't think it's going to prepare the people here that haven't been to a unit before. Like I think me, Duke, and Ivy are going to be like not perfectly fine. Where there's going to be a bit of an adjustment
But you're going to
period.
have a really
But
better working knowledge of how everything's going to
yeah,
work when you
like
show up.
but like somebody like you or Chad or like I don't know, Egger, you guys are going to like, at least from like my thoughts, are like you guys are going to be able to like catch up better than I think the people in Accelerated did, because there was this chief there in Accelerated, Miss Harrington, really nice lady, or who like straight up went up to me one day, or went up to like my squad one day and was like, "Listen, it's clear to me that a lot of you haven't been to the Army before, and your state failed you by bringing here because the purpose of accelerated is to get NCOs into becoming officers. That's
Hmm.
the purpose of it. It's not to just like fast track people. So like it's just sort of like your perspective on it. Do you want to learn on the job or do you want to be prepared to get there, you know?
Yep, absolutely. That's sound advice
Yeah.
and good NC advice from a seasoned NCO as well.
Yeah.
So, like
Chiefs are commissioned.
Chief. So yeah, Chief. Excuse me, Chief. So Mrs.
Yes. Yes.
But State OCS has done a really good job, I think, of preparing us. Like that we have, and the best thing is too, it's like the tax that you have at Accelerated or the ones that we even had at Phase One. We don't have their contact information. We're not going to chat with them. Like the cadre we have here at State OCS, if I need to call somebody, I could call like Captain McGuire. I could get his phone number, and be like, "Hey, sir, I'm having a tough time at my unit figuring out how stuff works. Could you give me a resource, or maybe tell me what I should probably do?" And he would probably reach out and be like, "Yeah, this is a couple of things I can send your way to make you better prepared to do this." And that's what we get at Accelerate. It's more like an internship, I guess, than just like here, just they just throw you in the mix and just say, "Good luck."
Yeah. Uh, to be fair, you're not done training to be a second lieutenant until Bullock anyway.
Yeah,
So
until
it's
you
like,
become a first lieutenant.
yeah. Uh, I don't know. For me, I'm happy that I'm in traditional. Do I think I could have passed accelerated?
Yeah.
Probably. Do am I grateful that like I'm getting more learning? Also, yes. You know.
Yeah, I remember whenever Babbitt came back, we were like, he was like, "I almost got done with phase two," and we're like, "Great, you can help us with all this stuff." And he's like, "I have no idea what we're doing here," and I was like, "What do you mean? You just did it?" And he goes, "Yeah, but it wasn't like this." And I
Yeah.
was like, "So the
Like,
program is so different."
yeah. I was okay. The tests are the same. I was able to help with the tests as
Mhm.
best I can. Okay. So here's the issue with the tests. We're done with the test, so I think I'm comfortable saying this. Captain Taylor pulled me to the side for like before we did the first test, I think, or
Mhm.
maybe it was directly after we did the first test, and was like, "Hey, man, here's the issue. You know all the answers. You can help people as best you can, but if you tell them like this is what's on the test, that's an honor code violation. If you do anything like that, if you like are like that's why whenever I'm gonna mention a story, and this story is one. Okay, so you remember during one of the tests, I was like, I don't know if this is. I can't tell you that this is on the test, but I wouldn't focus on this too much because I verbalized it in that
Yes.
specific way.
Yeah.
And there was a certain candidate who was like, "Well, why are you saying it like that? You say you can't say that it's on test. Why are you doing
Yes.
that?"
Yeah.
It's like, bro, I'm trying my best to be like, you're asking the wrong questions,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
I'm trying not to get honor code violated, but of course he doesn't know that. But
Yeah,
yeah, you're sitting there trying to. You're
yeah,
walking a very tight rope
yeah. We're like,
trying to get like, and most of us picked up on it, but the rest of
yeah.
some of us, yeah, some
I
of
was
us
like,
didn't.
listen, I don't remember having to worry about this. Stop asking me questions about this because
Mhm.
I they tell you what's on in South Dakota. They don't tell you what's on the test, but they're like, you
Yep.
know what I mean?
Foot stomping.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry, I forgot. I don't know how good these mics are. Here, if you want, I can kick the desk.
Yeah.
uh, yeah. So like, it's one of those things where it's like, if I don't remember something about the material, it's because it's not on the test. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes
And
perfect
that's why
sense.
I was trying to be like, I don't remember this. I didn't worry about it. You know, again, not to like talk too much trash on another candidate who, again, I'm not going to name drop, but
But yeah. So, with that being said, what advice do you have for anybody incoming into the army or who's coming into OCS? What would you say to them about what their outlook should be, and just good, I mean, dad advice or just
okay.
advice in general,
Um,
about folks coming into the military or just for life?
okay. I stole this from a comic book. Uh, So credit to Tom King from Superman Up in the Sky. I think it's issue 6. I'm not gonna get all comic nerdy right now, but there is this thing that I read in it that like kind of stuck with me, and that is the end of the mission is always 50 meters away. So like I think what I took from that is like you need to focus on like the here and now. who cares about the big picture, because that's not going to help you in the long run. You know what I mean? I mean, the big picture will help you, but and like but when you're in like the heat of it, right? And like you're in like a stressful situation, the most you can do is focus on what is happening, where you're going, and how you're going to get past that 50-meter hurdle, right?
Right.
Um, and that's advice that a lot of NCOs will give you as well. So I feel comfortable saying that because I'm sure that like whatever your first line, whenever you get to your unit, they'll probably tell you something similar to that.
Yeah.
When it comes to the enlisted side, I would say your best bit of advice is to not hide. To not hide. Yeah, this is how I'd word that. Because too many people in the guard, they're like, listen, I'm here for college. I'm just going to get in, get out. Excuse me. Get in, get out, and then like call it a day, right? Um, And there's the common joke that you show up to drill for first formation. You go around, you talk to your NCO, I see, and then you sit in a broom closet for 2 hours while everybody else does stuff. You know, that's like the common joke of what like everybody E1 to E5 does, right? Uh, but I don't think that that's helpful. I don't think that's productive, and I don't think that that's getting you anything. You know, like my first time at my first unit, like the NCOs were annoyed with how much I was just being like, "Hey, what can I do?" To be fair, I just come from a retail background, and I just come from basic and AIT, so the idea of downtime just was non-existent in my brain at that
Yeah.
point. And so like they were just like, I don't know, take out this trash, I guess. And I was like, cool, sure, whatever, you know. Just like stay busy, keep up with it. On the officer side, as somebody who isn't commissioned yet, so I don't know that I can say too much. Like that's very useful. I think that everything is based on perspective, right? Like I think that like there are gates to things, and you may not pass them, and that's gonna suck. But if you look at it from the mentality of like life is terrible because this happens, then what you're going to end up doing is you're going to be stuck always failing that gate, you know? Like, but if you look at it from the perspective of like this sucked, but tomorrow we can do better, then you can possibly pass, you know? And again, it's not definite, right? Nothing's definite in life, but there's nothing useful from a regressive mentality.
Right. I like it. I like it. Maintain a positive outlook. So, with that being said, that's about all we've got for the podcast today. I want to thank Marty Babbitt for coming on the show. Thanks for coming out, man,
No
and doing
problem,
this with us.
Corey.
Yeah, it's awkward always hearing people's first names. And they're like, you don't have a first name.
Yeah.
Your first name, you're just Babbitt.
Was it hard with Dewey? Or we
Oh
called him
yeah,
Dewey?
I called him Joey because of that tattoo. So, well, yeah. Thanks for watching. This is the Grand Old Cast, and we are signing off. Thanks again for coming on, Babbitt.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Anytime, man. Anytime. Oh, we're shaking hands.
Yeah, you good.